So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Today I'm sitting outside enjoying the chickens before it gets really hot. And I wanted to talk about some things that never really get talked about. Or at least in my experience, not so much. And maybe it's just because I'm watching so many Viking shows and I think those women are pretty awesome, but it got me to thinking. You know, a lot of the prepping channels I have looked into talk about what the men should do to protect their families and different things, and women really are, it's more about domestic stuff, what you can do in the home. And I want to share with you, what if you don't have a man at home? What if your husband gets sick? What if, you know, God forbid, your husband die? And in an emergency situation, what are you going to do as women to take care of yourself and to take care of your family? And I've put together a list that I think you're really going to like, and I hope so anyway, that I go over things that you can do, women, to prepare for an emergency situation, crap hits the fan situation, the power grid goes down situation, whatever you want to prepare for. And I think you ought to be prepared for all of them. Honestly, I live in Texas and I don't trust our power grid anymore, and I could pick it up and throw it. Not after the winter storm we had a couple of years ago. And I certainly don't trust our politicians to make sure that we stay safe. So what can you do? Here is my top list of things you can do to keep your family safe. The first thing, women, you need to do is learn how to build a fire. Now, obviously I have matches and lighters and all that stuff here, but what if they get wet? What if they don't work? How are you going to start a fire? It's not often a skill that's taught to most women anymore. And I would say get you a flint and steel and practice. Practice why there's not a crisis, or at least a major one that's causing that you have to be able to use that skill. The other thing I would recommend is learn how to cook on an open fire. Because if you can cook all you want to inside, but when it comes to outside grilling, which a lot of men claim privy to, what are you going to do? You need to know how to cook that food, that you're not going to burn it, that it's not going to be undercooked, all the things that can go wrong with outside cooking. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Another thing that I think would be really important is to learn basic first aid. Now, in my years in corrections, we had a certified first aid for years. I am looking into taking a refresher course. It's been 20 years. But I think knowing basic first aid and knowing CPR may be one of the most important skills that you could ever use, especially in a situation where it's not easy to get to a medical facility. Even where I live, we live 15 miles to the closest big town that has a hospital, and that's just more like an urgent care versus like a hospital. You need to know these skills because in 15 minutes your loved one can be dead. So I think that's highly important for you to know how to do. I hope my air conditioner is not too loud here. If it is, I'll probably do a voiceover on this clip. But some of the other skills is, now, go get your fishing license and your hunting license. Women, you need to know how to hunt. You need to know how to fish, and you need to know how to clean and prepare the fish, the meat, the deer, hogs that you get. Now right now in Texas, it's kind of open hog season. all year long because we have an abundance of wild hogs. When it cools off, I definitely plan on getting a hog, and I definitely plan on butchering myself because we don't even have a processor close to us. But you need to be able to have these skills. Well, Misty, I don't like blood and guts and all that gross stuff. I would say get over it. Because if your family is starving to death, you need to have the ability to be able to feed your family. Now, there is an old country western song by Hank Williams Jr. says, "Country boy will survive." Well, I challenge you to say a country girl will survive. Now, I realize all of you don't live in the country. Some of you live in the city. This is where prepping is going to come into play and be helpful. Because when we lived in the city, as if you're new to my channel, about 6 months ago, we left the city and moved back to our family farm. This was my grandfather's farm and his house that we live in. Both my grandparents have passed. They lived well into their 90s, but my granddad was a survivor. And he knew how to stretch pennies, he knew how to stock up, he knew how to scavenge. And I think those are skills that we're all gonna need. But just as much as my grandfather knew how to do this, my grandmother did too. Now, she didn't like the garden. She was the sewer. She sewed and crocheted and, you know, made a lot of my clothes growing up, especially when I was, you know, elementary, that age. A lot of my clothes were homemade. I hated it at the time because none of my other friends had homemade clothes. I mean, how crude was that to have homemade clothes? But now it's skills that I am desperately working on learning again. As a lot of you know, I crochet.
Hey friends, did you know I have an Etsy store? Be sure and go check it out. I have a lot of gift ideas and just fun stuff with more being added every day. The web address is Mama Z's Texas Kitchen Store on Etsy. Please go check it out, and I'll be sure and link it in the description below and also pin it in the comments.
I can sew a little bit, but it's a skill I definitely want to be working on, because you need to be able to do these things in a crisis situation. Maybe it's just mending a shirt or putting a button back on a shirt. Things like that are going to be so important if the time ever comes that we need them. Another point I'd like to make is learn to preserve your own food. Now, that can be canning, that can be dehydrating, sun drying, smoking, salting. There are a lot of different alternatives you could do to preserve your food where it makes it shelf stable and makes it last a lot longer. I mean, if you get a deer, for instance, and say that you don't know how to preserve that, then the hunting skills aren't going to matter, because your meat is just going to rot, or you're going to eat as much as you can right then, and the rest of it I'll be dog. But if you know how to smoke food, if you know how to salt dry food, if you know how to can food, because you can on an open fire, put it on a grill, it is possible to do, and people do it all the time. So learn these skills now, and if you never need them, then maybe you're just saving for, you know, food shortages and inflation and all that stuff. Learn these skills now. And I'm going to talk about something I know is a little controversy here. Learn how to defend yourself. Learn how to use a firearm, a knife, an axe, whatever you have available to you. But Misty, I don't like guns. They kill people. Yes, they do. And that's why taking a gun safety course, knowing your weapon, how to clean your weapon, and take care of your weapon is critically important. Ladies, let's just say that your husband was away and you were there by yourself with your children, or if you're like me, even just by myself, you know, my husband was away. What are you gonna do to protect your family? You say, well, I would call the police. We have no law enforcement in our town. The closest law enforcement is the sheriff's department, and it's at least 15 minutes out. So if there's somebody in your home fixing to do damage to your family, what are you going to do? I hope you have the skill to be able to defend yourself and your family. I don't know about y'all, but I will not be standing there and just letting them kill me or kill my family. It's not going to happen. Okay, there have been women all through history that were warriors and could take care of themselves and defend their families when their husbands or fathers were away. I think as women we have unique situations. We're more vulnerable to bad things happening to us. And I think if you don't know basic self-defense, and you are a lot more vulnerable of getting hurt. And that's not saying that you still won't get hurt, because obviously if you're overwhelmed or stuff like that, things can still happen. But my personal opinion, I would rather go down fighting. I just do not think being a damsel in distress is gonna get you through what a lot of us fear is coming. You have to be bold, you have to be brave, and you have to be ready to defend yourself, defend your family, and protect your family. So please, take a self-defense class. Take a gun handler's class. Do what you need to do to protect yourself and protect your family. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's dealing with subjects that I normally don't deal with, but I think it's important for all of us to speak up and say, this is what you need to do. And women homesteaders and preppers, I think it's very important that you guys speak up. Not just what you can do in the house and domestic stuff, what you can do to protect your family. So I challenge y'all, make your own video. Things women can do to protect themselves and to survive a crap hits the fan situation. Thank you so much for joining us today on Mama Z's Texas Kitchen. We'll see you guys on the next video.